Okay, so I am about to do a little read aloud of my recusal. So I feel like it's important, and if you could just bear with me as I read this aloud to you all, because I think that it's important that people know what's in here. Okay, so... And I mean, with me and Attorney Jack, I mean, this was huge. This took me all summer to write and to work on, and leading up to so much stress. And honestly, the day she heard the recusal was like the scariest, one of the scariest days of my life. However, it was denied, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, we just have the basic here, Eugene versus Jennifer, in the Court of Westmoreland County Common Pleas in the state of Pennsylvania. Petition for recusal. Now into court comes Jennifer L. Jeswali, petitioner, who shows as follows. Petitioner is and was at all times material hereto the defendant mother in Jeswali versus Jeswali, entered as docket numbered XYZ in the Court of Common Pleas of Westmoreland County, state of Pennsylvania. Excuse me. Petitioner fears and believes that she has not and will not receive a fair and impartial hearings and determinations concerning any and all matters concerning the above cause in court if the cause is continued to be heard and determined by Michelle Benoni, one of the judges in this court, because of violations for willful misconduct while in office, for her persistent failure to perform her duties, for her conduct that is prejudicial excuse me, to the administration of justice, and which brings the Pennsylvania judiciary into disrepute for her engaging in unlawful and criminal acts and for engaging in acts of violation of federal law. Judge Michelle Benoni allowed herself to be an instrumentality of the intricate revenge vendetta scheme planned and executed by the plaintiff and his counsel and various others. Judge Michelle Benoni embraced her role and acted with an enthusiasm and malice completely devoid of the trust placed in her by the people of her district. Petitioner fell victim to a conspiracy between a vengeful husband, his unethical attorney, and a district attorneys, parentheses S, attorneys for district, aimed at defeating the petitioner in court using all the resources at the judge's disposal to obstruct and deny justice. Petitioner requests that Judge Michelle Benoni's recusal, a hearing to disclose her financial and non-financial ties with the plaintiff and the plaintiff's attorney and district attorney Judy Petrush, detectives, the guardian ad litem, local attorney agencies, Laurel Legal and Blackburn Center, counselors assigned to the case, and the employees of the Pathonetary Office, her extrajudicial communications with and all dealings with plaintiff's counsel, the nature of her relationship and extent of her communications with a witness in the case, and the appointment of a fair and impartial judge who will uphold the law and vacate the corrupt verdicts made in this case. Next point. Petitioner states that her request is founded upon the following. 1. Judicial bias. Excuse me. Judicial bias. Petitioner incorporates by reference the allegations of judicial bias, as though set forth herein. The pretense that Judge Michelle Benoni acts in a fair and impartial manner in the petitioner's case is a hoax. Judge Michelle Benoni has made rulings and decisions favoring the opponent, which are not only a gross abuse of discretion, but ones which knowingly and deliberately disregarded clear and controlling law and obliterated, distorted, and fabricated facts in the record to do so. Judge Michelle Benoni has sat with undisclosed relationships with parties deliberately to advantage them, for example, offering my old attorney the opportunity to stick around and enjoy the show of her revenge scheme to have me arrested and steal my children after he resigned. Her wide discretion is exercised in their favor for whom procedural standards and evidentiary rules do not apply. While favoring the petitioner's opponent at all times, the petitioner has struggled while being bankrupted by the court, I'm the petitioner, to meet ongoing and changing demands of the judge and the plaintiff and his counsel. The petitioner has had every single motion and request denied by Judge Michelle Bononi since 2019. A judicial process predicated on standards of conduct, elementary legal principles, and rules of evidence has never existed. Judge Michelle Bononi has denied, without exception, every single request made by the petitioner for the entire 3-year term of the parties' custody litigation as follows. So we'll start here, and I have pages and pages of denials. And actually, it's way longer, and as Jack said, if I really would have dug deeper into each hearing, I could have found way more denials. Adverse rulings are normally an insufficient basis for judicial disqualification. However, under these particular circumstances, to hold that Judge Michelle Bononi is unbiased, despite her systematic denial of every aspect, procedural and substantive aspect of the petitioner's case, would defy common sense and logic. Her above are all denials in court against petitioner mother, and when reading through court transcripts, the denials double or triple in the amount of times I made a request that was denied for custody, including extended custody time, requests to purchase phones for my children, and trying to prevent myself and my children from being physically abused. So here's the next point. Children and mother in danger. Judge Bononi's above rulings are cruel and abusive and have put my children and myself in grave danger. Judge Michelle Bononi set up the petitioner mother, which is me, to have wiretapping charges, and admitted in court transcripts that she had no choice but to turn mother into detectives. When you read the transcripts from September 2019, where Judge Bononi held an emergency hearing because she saw mother recording herself talking on her Facebook. Petitioner mother received no notice of the hearing that was immediately scheduled because mother had just let go of her attorney. The court transcript shows it was clearly a setup that day to have me arrested, and my children were stolen from me that day and given into an abusive man and now an abusive woman. The court transcripts show the September 2019 hearings was to have mother arrested, and she brought in who was called the mother's victim from the pathonetary office, who these office employees have continually violated the petitioner's due process rights and still have continued to do so since this day, that they falsely accused petitioner of wiretapping, and before that actually. Petitioner mother had spent 79 days trapped in jail, may have been 83, and was physically and sexually assaulted in jail. Judge Michelle Bononi knowingly and willingly has violated the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution by denying the petitioner due process and showing bias in direct violation of Pennsylvania law. Judge Michelle Bononi's denial of every single request made by the petitioner clearly shows her inability to be fair and impartial, and the petitioner does not expect that there will ever be a fair or impartial decision made in this case. It says his, but I meant to say this case. Judge Michelle Bononi has sent a message and made it abundantly clear that the petitioner will not prevail in her courtroom, irrespective of what is correctable with an appeal, and which obviously here we are trying to appeal, nothing can be corrected, and she will not step down when presented with a recusal request, because I have asked her to please step down before, but I never filed a recusal, but I asked. She instead tells me I'm never to say that she is biased again, and how she has no reason to recuse herself, clearly being biased and setting up a revenge scheme to put the mother petitioner in jail and take away mother's freedom of speech, and ability to ever regain custody of my children by prolonging court hearings and decisions and coming up with excuses as to why she has to keep children from mother. Mother has never abused her children, nor has she ever been accused of it. However, mother's children have been physically and emotionally abused by both the plaintiff, their father, and his paramour, Melissa Nagel. Mother has also been physically abused by both of these people as well, and Judge Benoni refuses to care and agrees to hear motions, and they don't get heard and mysteriously not filed, putting mother and mother's children in continuous grave danger. The Children's School District has now resulted in reporting the father to the Children's Protective Bureau for health concerns, neglect, and abuse. This is a year later after the school filed their first abuse claim against the father for neglect and health concerns. However, Judge Michelle Benoni refused to hear it, and then later, when she heard part of the emergency hearing, denied it as usual. Petitioner mother has a 3-year protection from abuse order from Eugene Jeswali, plaintiff and father, for rape, assault, and harassment. Mother is scheduled in court to extend this PFA against plaintiff. Plaintiff has continued to harass petitioner mother through the court system in every way possible, which after hiring 5 custody divorce attorneys, petitioner has been bankrupted multiple times. It is clear that not one attorney can be successful to ever prevail in this courtroom while representing mother. Judge Michelle Benoni likes to antagonize the petitioner mother from the bench about the petitioner's multiple custody and divorce attorneys, and then about not having one, as petitioner has been forced into self-representation. One former attorney, Joe Nicotero, sent the petitioner a message telling her that Judge Benoni has too much ammunition on mother. Mother has saved copies, has the saved copy of this message. Another one, the petitioner's former attorney's attorney Monzo, told mother to hide her nice purse before entering Judge Benoni's courtroom because, he said, we don't want to set her off. Petitioner mother, he told me to hide it under my coat, and I did. Petitioner mother was also not only bankrupted through hiring attorneys for custody and criminal, but she was bankrupted by losing everything because of going to jail on a bogus wiretapping charge, where she was stuck in jail for 79 days because of her high bail, and then later the revoke of her bond, where her 6'3" husband says his 5-foot-tall wife strangled him, and another ongoing revenge scheme against mother set up with Judge Michelle Benoni's friend, District Attorney Judy Petrush. Despite all the deals made, these charges all still linger over this mother's head, preventing her from obtaining any type of good employment. Judge Michelle Benoni took away the petitioner's mother's spousal support while she was in jail, and she will not allow her to reapply. Petitioner mother reapplied in January 2020, and she was told by the courthouse employees that Judge Benoni was preventing her from reapplying for her spousal support. Petitioner asked Judge Benoni about this in court, and she denied ever taking away mother's spousal support or denying her applying again. Petitioner mother then tried to apply again, where they told her again that Judge Benoni was still preventing her from applying for spousal support. Judge Benoni then told petitioner again in court that she was never preventing me from applying, that is simply not true, and mother remains left without her spousal support. Petitioner mother was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years, putting her career on hold to raise her children. And when she tried to better their lives by leaving an abusive man, she then entered an abusive courtroom to continue being abused more. Petitioner mother was bankrupted by Judge Benoni by being denied emergency relief, which is money that I need from Gino. Petitioner mother was bankrupted by Judge Benoni by forcing paid supervised visits on me at the most expensive agencies. Petitioner was bankrupted by Judge Benoni by having to pay for a mental evaluation by the judge's chosen therapist, which petitioner had already received one and passed by therapist Erica Kelly. Erica Kelly also happens to be a defendant in Judge Benoni's courtroom, and Erica Kelly's children were also taken away from her and given to the children's father, which has also traumatized and destroyed this good mother and her children. Another father, Dr. Mark Gautron, who has Judge Benoni as his custody judge, has been successful at having 100% custody of his daughter and 0 visitation for the mother or the grandparents. Dr. Gautron even admits that Judge Benoni's orders are extreme and even made worse than what he's asking for. Petitioner has met multiple attorneys who say she is not the only one And Judge Benoni loves to take children away from their mothers and then prolong court cases for years, calling them review hearings. Here we are. Where mothers and children are wrongfully separated and fighting to get any time possible back with their children, which often proves unsuccessful despite doing every single request that Judge Michelle Benoni comes up with next at each hearing until Judge Benoni figures out a way to stall the process completely. She approved the petitioner's therapist, Jonathan Held, and then when she didn't like that he thought petitioner mother should get her children back, she attempted to force petitioner to never see Jonathan again and to see one of her chosen therapists. She also threatened Jonathan Held's job and threatened him with a bench warrant and jail time after he repeatedly jumped through Judge Benoni's hoops set for him, and she refused to believe him and caused much drama around him being the petitioner's therapist. He is a therapist at the well-known Grace Wellness Center, which is the largest Christian counseling center in Westmoreland County and Allegheny counties. He is a husband and a father of 6 children, and Judge Benoni had no problems with him as the petitioner's therapist for over a year. It is detrimental to the petitioner's mental health for a judge to give her an ultimatum of seeing her children or going to her corrupt counselor, Don. This is an unethical abuse of justice. Don Smitely's file has since been sealed with the courts. Don Smitely, along with Judge Benoni, cyber-stalked the petitioner after her children were first taken. Petitioner happened to meet Don Smitely when going to the address of a custody attorney after her children were taken. Don Smitely met the petitioner at the address where she listened to the petitioner's story and offered her legal advice, but she is not an attorney. She then was assigned as the petitioner's new therapist, by Judge Benoni, and Don Smitely spoke abusive to the petitioner, violating me of my rights in order to meet in her office, which the petitioner, remembering Don Smitely, knew was already an extreme conflict of interest. Judge Benoni then tried to appoint a string of other corrupt court-appointed therapists who all wanted nothing to do with the case of multiple people watching the petitioner's YouTube videos about what has been done to her children and herself because of my estranged husband in Judge Benoni's courtroom. One of the 5 new therapists assigned, who all immediately quit, the court order lies about. Judge Benoni has self-diagnosed petitioner mother and is trying to tell her how to deal with trauma, all the while continuing to traumatize her by keeping her children away from her because Judge Benoni does not like that the petitioner exercises her rights to freedom of speech as a way to tell her story of what is being done and been done to her family. The petitioner mother is being punished by Judge Michelle Benoni for speaking out about this abuse and hopes that someone may see and be able to help her regain custody of her children. Judge Michelle Benoni cannot take away freedom of speech, nor can a judge give a mental health diagnosis and abuse the abused mother even more by her verbal abuse in court, and court orders that are abusive towards mother and her children, and all requests by mother constantly and continually denied. One new therapist assigned cognitive behavioral therapy was never contacted by the courts, did not receive the court order. They did not know about this and were not able to do it because of such short notice and not much availability due to COVID. Cognitive Behavior Institute sent petitioner letters saying that they could not do it for these reasons. However, the court order lies, saying that they could not do it because of the petitioner's health insurance. Then another counselor right by the courthouse was chosen. She could not do or even understand what the court order was even asking of her, because none of the therapists who were sent in order received the original order saying what was even expected of them. Now, that was probably Carolyn Menta, who was referred by Don Smitely, and then there's Carol Hughes, who was also assigned. Please Google all of these people, Don Smitely, Carol Hughes, and Carolyn Menta, please, and read about what horrible things they've done to families in custody cases. She could not do it or even understand. Okay, now we are at a court-driven standstill because the court has not assigned a new therapist, which should have been no problem with Jonathan held being and remaining the petitioner's therapist. There also should have been no issues returning the petitioner's children to her after jail and after her mental evaluation given by Dr. Bush, Judge Benoni's chosen therapist, whose mental evaluation says there is no reason for the petitioner to not have my children unsupervised. Dr. Bush's report was stated to be enough by Judge Benoni for mother to have her kids. However, here we are almost 2 years later, and Judge Benoni remains denying the fact that she said that, and Judge Benoni denies that Dr. Bush's report says that, even though it does. Each time a therapist or assigned person, including the guardian ad litem, says there are no parental concerns and return my children, which he was doing that at once, and then he just stopped because the judge was never going to give him back. This is conspiracy. She then refers me to another person who she hopes will say no. Judge Benoni continues to use victim shaming towards the petitioner and has been cyber stalking her for 3 years and continues to do so, even though no reason was given on the court order to take the petitioner's children, which is illegal to not give a reason. She now says it is because of the YouTube videos the petitioner made. However, the YouTube videos petitioner did were mostly done after her children were taken, aside from 2. And the 2 that were done before, one was 6 months earlier and never mentioned before, and the next was the day she filed an emergency hearing that the petitioner was unaware of. The video that she could be referring to months prior, the petitioner was crying over the insane strangulation charges her husband has over her head, and she just lost her job because of. Petitioner also expressed her disgust with the legal system in Westmoreland County. Petitioner was also crying because her kids and her were being forced to move out of the petitioner's marital home by Judge Benoni and the plaintiff, Gino. She then did a video on the day they claimed she was wiretapping. Petitioner wished her niece a happy birthday and went to the courthouse to try to obtain her requested transcripts, where she then continued to be intimidated by court staff about obtaining her transcript. This was a Friday, and on a Monday, the revenge scheme to arrest the petitioner mother for this and steal her children from her began and still continues 2 years later. Because of Judge Benoni's failure to send out another motion for a review hearing in over 6 months, it is doing nothing but intentionally prolonging the petitioner's children being kept from her. She refuses to make a final decision off her temporary order to remove petitioner's children from petitioner mother's custody 2 years ago, and she clearly set petitioner mother up for failure with these past counselors also prolonging the case. Her last court order is clearly devised to potentially never give the petitioner mother increased custody time of her children. Judge Michelle Benoni knows that the plaintiff's paramour has abused the petitioner's children. Judge Michelle Benoni refused to hear the contempt motion and special relief in September 2019, only putting the petitioner's children at more risk and danger. In February, the paramour punched the petitioner mother in the head at her daughter's dance class in front of petitioner's 9-year-old at the time daughter in her dance class. This severely traumatized the petitioner's daughter and left the petitioner with a concussion in the hospital. Judge Benoni denied the petitioner's emergency motion and created a court order that protects the petitioner's abusers, encourages them to hurt the petitioner more, and it continues to allow harm to the petitioner's children and to the petitioner or put in harm's way. Petitioner was told by police to file an ICC as her assault was in direct violation of the Protection from Abuse order. However, Judge Benoni told the petitioner that she better not file an ICC, and the petitioner was told this was on multiple other occasions before. The petitioner mother has never asked the court to not give her home. The petitioner mother has asked the court to not give her home address to the plaintiff due to the Protection from Abuse order, but instead she makes the court order for him to drop the children off directly at the paramour's house, violating the court order. The paramour, Melissa Nagel, was charged with simple assault, disorderly conduct, and convicted of harassment towards the petitioner mother. Judge Benoni refused to believe this, and even when presented with documents of her charges, once again blamed the petitioner mother, and Judge Benoni once again threatened to put mother in cuffs in her courtroom for just breathing as usual. The paramour, Melissa Nagel, has medically abused the petitioner's children. The petitioner's 3 children are medically and religiously exempt from vaccines, and the paramour, Nagel, takes them to doctors and has the medically exempt children all vaccinated while pretending to be their mother. The father is aware of his son's previous medical history and how vaccines could put his children's life in danger. Despite this, the paramour has taken them to all types of doctors pretending to be their mother and having unnecessary and harmful medical procedures done to the petitioner's children. Judge Benoni repeatedly refused to hear this, and when she did, she didn't care. It is to the point, and she even says she don't care, is even to the point now that the children's school district has children protective services were called on the father and his paramour for health concerns, medical abuse, and neglect. Judicial remarks during the course of the trial that are critical or disapproving of and even hostile to myself, my counsel, my therapist, the parties, or their cases ordinarily do not support a bias or a partiality challenge. However, such remarks may constitute bias if they reveal an opinion deriving from an extrajudicial source, or if they reveal such a high degree of favoritism or antagonism as to make fair judgment impossible. Judge Michelle Benoni's personal insults, coupled with the totality of the circumstances in the case, most clearly evidence a bias and prejudice of her part against the petitioner, such as, and not limited to, improperly engaging in discussions with lawyers or parties to cases in the absence of representatives of opposing parties, and manifesting bias and prejudice by words and the performance of judicial duties. Judge Benoni continually threatens the petitioner with jail time before and after she schemed to have the petitioner put in jail for false wiretapping charges. She did not want the petitioner obtaining a copy of the court transcript and therefore made her pay the price. The father only had custody of his children every other Saturday for a year at his choice. However, she gave him full custody with obvious plans to never return my children to the petitioner mother. She gave no reason for her emergency removal of the petitioner mother's children. However, wiretapping charges came out for the petitioner mother right after the children were taken, and the court transcript from that day proves the emergency custody hearing was set up to have the petitioner mother arrested, me. Judge Benoni uses abusive language for the petitioner mother, threats, antagonization, and jail time, allows Eugene Jeswali, the plaintiff, and his paramour to do the same to the plaintiff and her children. The petitioner or her children have not deserved any of this unjust, unfair, and abusive treatment from Judge Benoni and the petitioner's vengeful and spiteful husband and his paramour and his counsel. The petitioner has never abused her children, nor has she ever been accused of abusing her children. The court assigned the guardian ad litem who works for the court, stating in testimony that he has no parental concerns about the petitioner. But now he has concerns that I did a video on him. But this time he didn't. But now that the videos are coming out, now he has concerns. The petitioner or her children have not deserved any of this unjust, unfair, and abusive treatment from Judge Michelle Benoni and the petitioner's vengeful and spiteful husband and his paramour and counsel. The petitioner has never abused her children, nor has she ever been accused of abusing her children. The court assigned guardian ad litem, who works for the court, stated in testimony that he has no parental concerns about the petitioner mother and that she has a home for her children to live and they all want to live with their mother. While the progression of the custody case is at a standstill, the petitioner mother is in fear of going to court before Judge Benoni to try to protect her children, even in emergency situations, because Judge Michelle Benoni continues to threaten the petitioner in court and uses her iron fist to squash all of the petitioner's mother's attempts and efforts to protect her children and regain custody. The petitioner mother is afraid to enter Judge Benoni's courtroom. Judge Benoni and her court staff have stalking behavior toward the petitioner mother. Judge Benoni, Westmoreland County Court, employs cyber stalk the petitioner mother. The petitioner mother is worried and lives in fear of what will happen next because of Judge Michelle Benoni or by entering her unruly courtroom, and therefore is placed in horrible and emergency situations where the judge will not allow the petitioner to try to protect or even see her children, and encourages abusive situations for the petitioner mother to continue. The guardian ad litem and the plaintiff's attorney have both put the petitioner mother in desperate situations, telling her that in order to avoid going before Judge Benoni, that Eugene, the plaintiff, the father, and petitioner mother should talk and work this out. Petitioner then reached out to the church who married her, and the plaintiff and where the plaintiff now attends and had a bigamous marriage ceremony, included the petitioner's children in the wedding. The pastor got Eugene to agree to a 50-50 custody arrangement and a divorce settlement for me, which was my retirement. The pastor got Eugene, okay, running out of time. The plaintiff, the pastor, and the petitioner then met on a recorded Zoom meeting where Eugene agreed on the recorded Zoom meeting to give mother 50-50 custody of her children. However, plaintiff did not keep his word, and matters only escalated, and the children continued to be abused more by plaintiff father as a result. The petitioner's children were then cut from her this summer while being left home alone, and the guardian does not care as he works for the courts. Conclusion. Judge Bononi is a dangerous combination of arrogance, ignorance, and incompetence, a bully, and a stain on the judiciary. For 3 years, the petitioner has been pulled into a vortex of unnecessary litigation disguised as legit court proceedings. Legitimate. While Judge Bononi has sat back and allowed herself and opposing counsel to excuse issues, avoid issues, bury issues, delay issues, and blame all issues on mother, otherwise to obfuscate and confuse the petitioner and her attorneys, while hundreds of thousands of dollars are being exchanged between the plaintiff and the opposing counsel, Judge has proven that mother obtaining custody in her courtroom is virtually impossible due to her extreme bias towards mother. She has heard plaintiff admit to committing crimes. Plaintiff Gino admit to committing criminal acts himself while on the stand in her courtroom. However, her extreme bias proves the opposing party can get away with whatever they want, including admitting to crimes on the stand. However, she could not wait to orchestrate mother being charged with wiretapping charge when I